all goes together to make a locomotive package that really does look sturdy yet authentic. Well, hello there everyone. I hope I find you well this fine morning, and I hope you're coping okay, finding lots of things to fill your time. So here is one thing to entertain you for a few minutes whilst I show you a new locomotive from Hornby that I picked up in some of the really great sales that are going on. So if you want to pick up new models for your layout, hopefully this might give you a little bit of inspiration. And today's video comes in association with Trainomatic, makers and designers of DCC decoders. And we're going to be having a DCC decoder fitting guide at the end of this video, which will show you exactly how to put one of the Trainomatic decoders into this fine model from Hornby. But without further ado, I'm really excited to show you this. Come with me. Let's take a closer look. The Hornby J15 has been in their range for a couple of years now, on and off, and actually it's one which I did spot when it came out, and for one reason or another I never quite got round to getting one, and it's niggled quite a lot. So when I saw these in the sale, I thought I've really got to get one, and I did. And here it is, number 65477 in BR Early Crest Black, and it's such a cute little locomotive, so much smaller than a lot of the other locomotives on the market, and you really get a sense of that when you put it next to something a lot bigger. But Hornby have captured this pre-grouping Great Eastern Railway locomotive to a T. We've got a catalogue number on here. We've got R3415, early BR, class J15 65477. And you'll see as well it says DCC ready, and stay tuned to the end of the video and we'll do a full how-to DCC fitting guide and show you that it is incredibly easy to DCC fit this locomotive. Taking it out of the box, it's the standard Hornby packaging. And before anybody complains, I do apologise for the paint I've got all over me. Yes, I have washed my hands. No, it doesn't come off. I've been filming another video and managed to get paint all over my fingers. But a little bit tight in here, just slipping it out. And one of the first things that we notice is that there's very familiar added detail bag. This includes brake rigging, both for the tender and locomotive. We've got some vacuum pipes as well, and I think the other one of these may even be steam pipes. Could be wrong on that. There's a number of other bits and pieces, front coupling and a NEM pocket as well. So you only need to apply these if you feel inclined to. Personally, the brake rigging is something that from normal viewing angles you're never going to see, so I tend not to bother. But they're there for you if you want to add them. Getting into the packaging, wow, it's actually quite a heavy locomotive, and this is something that's very pleasing to see coming through. In fact, actually, the weight that's in this is quite terrific, and it feels like they've used a lot of metal in its production to get that weight up, and that goes to give a feel of a quality product. And I know that a lot of people might say weight doesn't mean quality necessarily, but for me it does feel like you're getting a lot of bang for your buck. This fairly basic BR Early Crest Black without any lining whatsoever could have been a livery that would have been boring, but actually it's anything but on this model. We can see that it actually is a lovely satin black finish, and I really do like this coming through from the manufacturers. Matte would look weird, but gloss, again, I don't think gloss works on a model locomotive or rolling stock, so the satin finish really is the best of everything, and it gives it this kind of workhorse, slightly oily look, which I think just works ever so well, even clean out of the box. It's like somebody's been over it with an oily rag. The tampo printing on it is exquisite. There's not very much, but it is really crisp and clear. We've got the cab side number 65477 and also the route availability underneath. RA1 means that, well, these could go pretty much anywhere on the ex-London and North Eastern Railway system, and I'm guessing that whilst they probably stuck to their original Great Eastern Railway stamping grounds, they wouldn't look out of place straying a little bit further afield. Paired with this actually quite small, dinky little tender, I think that they were intended to fit within restricted loading gauges as well as be able to fit on certain turntables that were about on the system. And it's something that I've noticed with a lot of the London and North Eastern Railway constituent locomotives, that they have these very tiny squashed up tenders to fit within the restraints of those turntables. Looking on the tender, that BR Cycling Lion logo is really nicely done. I'm sure these get sharper and sharper with each locomotive that I look at, but certainly the satin black underneath behind it really sets it off and makes it an eye-catching piece of the livery. Other tempo printing on here, we've got a works plate on the middle splasher, and I've got every faith that under close magnification that is going to show up really nicely. On the front of the locomotive, tempo printing extends to a shed code plate, and of course the smokebox number again 65477. There's not a lot else really in terms of tempo printing until you look inside the cab, and it's something that really Hornby are excelling on. All of those gauges are perfectly tempo printed. They've got this sense that there's something there, there's a needle, there's markings. It really is beautifully done. And also we can see the flush glazing, the spectacle plates at the front. There's no glazing bar on this, and it's been a bit of a narc with some locomotives where you get this kind of shiny bar of clear plastic that really does grate a little bit when you look inside the cab, but we don't get any of that here. The actual window glass in there, it is flush fitted from the inside as well as the outside, and that is really beautifully done. In terms of other detail, we've got this kind of gunmetal finished reversing gear linkage coming out from the cab, and it really does look quite nice. And I believe that these may have been Westinghouse air pumps, and they really are a nice separately applied detail feature that really brings alive what could have otherwise been a fairly bland and boring locomotive. Other fittings include metal separately applied handrails, and we've also got pipework down there, and actually some quite exquisite little bits and pieces of detail. And then I think that these may be something to do with the water pump, certainly a water feed into the boiler, and it really is nicely done. There's no hint of glue overspill on any of that. It just, everything is snugly in where it should be, and it doesn't feel like any of this detail is fragile or prone to falling off. Turning to below the sole bar of this locomotive, we've got brake blocks that line up with the wheels, and the wheels are the correct pattern for this locomotive. They really do look nice in this slightly darkened metal finish with the black centres, and then we've got the connecting rods correctly done without any fluting, and they really are exquisite and fine, and it's something that really Hornby, I think, are one of the best on the market for the connecting rods. They get them down to a scale thickness, scale, everything, and it just really is a package that works so well. We've also got some sanding pipes. They're fitted in like a sprung-loaded metal, and they're quite sharp if you get your fingers on them the wrong way, but they are scale thickness, and it really is nice. We've also got some of the injector pipe work at the back behind these sets of steps, which are made of metal and actually surprisingly robust, given that they are pretty much scale thickness. And it all goes together to make a locomotive package that really does look sturdy yet authentic. The tender itself as well, we've got those brake blocks lining up with the wheel treads, and then the representation of the springs on these outside frames. And actually, even though it's moulded on detail, it does look pretty good. And I do love these cutaways in the frame that give a real sense of the bulk and presence of the real locomotive that these are based on. Turning to the underside, well, we've got pickups from all 6 driving wheels. We've also got some pickups as well on the tender wheels. And this locomotive, when I've had it running, does run silky smooth and very, very reliable. Again, not a locomotive that I feel needs a stay alive or a smart power pack, although there is space in there if you want to try and fit such things. The coupling is a slimline tension lock in a NEM pocket. On the back of the tender it comes factory fitted, but on the front of the locomotive we've just got the triangular shaped recess, and if you want to fit a coupling, and I would actually recommend it on this locomotive, it just slots in from the detail package. These locomotives, being primarily a freight locomotive, would have worked equally as well forwards and backwards, so I think a front coupling does make a lot of sense. The funnel is pretty nicely done. It's got this very tall, almost like a stovepipe funnel, and it's very characteristic of these pre-grouping locomotives. When you look down it, well, there's no bottom that you can see. The hole just keeps on going, just like it would on the real locomotive, and it's something that I think actually is important, because a lot of the time you're viewing these locomotives by looking down onto them, and if you can see this sort of bottom of the hole, it kind of takes away some of the realism of a model. We don't get any of that here. The dome as well, it's got this characteristic, actually quite far forward dome, very tall and nicely realised, and there's no gaps around the seams at the bottom for either the funnel or the dome, showing where they've been attached. Looking further back along the boiler, we've got turned and metal safety valves and then a whistle, which I think it's plastic. It's a little bit springy, but it doesn't look bad for that. In fact, it matches with these metal safety valves quite nicely. All in all, I think we've got a really nice package. We can see underneath the boiler, there's no representation of any motion in there, but what is moulded in there suggests to me that actually you might not have been able to see anything. There's something detailed in there, but it's not the motion of the locomotive. One of the areas which puzzled me ever so slightly, though, is this band on the boiler. If you look at that against the light, we've got this satin finish neatly on the front 2 and rear 2 panels, but then this looks somewhat slightly more matte, and I can't quite work out why. It's not a major detraction, but it does draw the eye, and I'm not entirely sure why. Inside the locomotive, it's fitted with twin flywheels, and every inch of this boiler is crammed with a metal weight to give that amazing amount of weight for adhesion, and it really does make this locomotive a sterling performer. Looking to the tender, we've got this great big pile of moulded coal, but if you don't like it, it does come out. You just need to fiddle away. But Hornby are actually getting really, really good with these coal mouldings in the tender. And just like some of the other locomotives we've recently reviewed, I'm always looking at them and thinking, you know what, I just couldn't get as good an effect as that with using real coal. Somehow this just seems perfect. So I'm quite happy to leave this be. But if you want to model the locomotive with low coal in the tender, it does come out. You can get rid of it, put it back in the box, and then a little sprinkling of coal dust, a ground down coal in there, would complete the effect. I'm going to leave this in here because I actually think it's really nice. We've also got the fire iron holders on the side here, toolbox, brake standard, and also the water filler on the back. The fluted top of the tender sides are really nicely done, and it all in all captures the prototypical look perfectly. The buffers are all turned metal, sprung, and another feature that these have captured well is these guard irons on the back of the tender. Painted in red, they're a very prominent feature, and Hornby have captured these really, really well, I think. Now, I want to show you the DCC fitting guide next, and the decoder that I recommend for this comes from our channel sponsor Train-O-Matic, and we recommend the 8-pin wired decoder. It's also safe to say that whilst there doesn't appear to be a TTS sound decoder currently in Hornby's range, I always say that the Hornby TTS sound chips offer the best value for money for any sound if you want to go down that route. And actually there is a J15 sound chip, and to my ear I suspect that you could probably get away with that in this locomotive. As you'll come to see, it is set up ready to take a TTS sound setup. It's just simply a case that I've not been able to find one currently on the market, marketed specifically for this locomotive. For the DCC fitting, the tools you're going to need are your trusty large flathead screwdriver and a crosshead one too. Primarily the flathead is just for levering out that blanking plate and making sure you don't bend the pins. The real money shot comes with this. If we turn the tender over, some locomotives you've had to lever out the rear coupling to expose a screw. If you do lever out this coupling, it does expose a screw, but don't be fooled by it. That doesn't hold the tender top on. Instead, we need to look to these two screws further back, just hidden down here in plain sight. Unscrew and unscrew, and you'll feel the tender top come loose. Turn the locomotive back open and just wiggle it free. The entire tender top comes off really easily. Because this tender is quite small, you're going to have to get creative to try and fit things in. As you can see, we've got a large weight in here which takes the space where you would put the speaker if you wish to fit a TTS sound chip, or indeed any other kind of sound chip. But you're going to have to be quite careful how you fit the chip in itself. As you can see, I've fitted this already with the 8-pin Train-O-Matic decoder. Out of the box, what you will find here is an 8-pin blanking plate. Use the flathead screwdriver to just gently work it loose, take it in turns either end, and then lift it free. There is a marking just down there on the circuit board for pin 1. Pin 1 is orange. Line them up, make sure all the pins are in the right place, and with a gentle pressure, just slowly push it all the way home. Because this isn't a sound decoder, I've chosen to tuck the decoder and the surplus wiring down into this recess very carefully, just to keep it from getting snagged with the tender top. The Train-O-Matic decoder comes ready heat shielded, which also means that it's unlikely to actually short out on anything, so you don't need to worry too much about that. If you use a decoder that doesn't have a heat shield, you're going to need to protect that decoder from shorting out on the metal of this weight in the tender. Once that's in, take your tender top and you'll see that there's a clip on the back just there. What you're wanting to do, making sure all the wires are in, get that to hook in and feed the tender top down and click it into place. Turn the tender over, and then this is where the fun and games can start. Just trying to get these screws down into the right spot. Don't over tighten these because you will strip the thread. Also, whilst I've got this locomotive upside down, I want to draw attention again. I love the way that Hornby are doing these semi-permanently coupled tender drawbars. It really does save a lot of aggro on these wires getting strained. So it's a feature that I like again and again. You will also notice that there's an extra hole recess there. It's possible to set the locomotive and the tender up for a closer coupling, but be warned, it won't get round steep curves if you do that, and really that is something to save only for if you've got prototypical curves or this locomotive is going into a display cabinet. Now it comes time for the scores. First up is finish, and actually I really like this satin finish that Hornby's got on this. As I said in the review, it makes it look like a locomotive that's had a bit of TLC at the shed, but that TLC has also involved a wipe over with an oily rag. It does make the locomotive look so much more authentic. The tampo printing is sharp and clear. Everywhere that it is on here, it's very sparing with the tampo printing detail, but that's true to the prototype, and what you do get is all really nicely done. Really, the only area that had a question mark for me is this slightly matter band on the boiler, and I'm really not sure quite what's going on there. It feels to me like, I don't know, maybe it's a different material. Maybe it's something to do with metal and plastic butting up to each other. But certainly, once your eye catches it, my eye does keep getting drawn to that, and I'm afraid that does mark it down ever so slightly. However, don't take away from that this model is bad. That is certainly not the case. And I would give this a pretty good 8.9 out of 10. Next up, its functionality. I found that this locomotive ran incredibly well straight out of the box. I know that they say you should run in a locomotive for, half an hour in each direction, but there wasn't actually any need to with this. It was silky smooth, and it just got better and better as it ran. But it never felt like it was in need of smoothing out any rough spots on the drivetrain. With the all-wheel pickup from both locomotive and tender, it was super reliable, even over insel frogs and crossings. So for functionality, I'm going to give this a 9.8 out of 10. Ease of use. Well, principally this is the DCC fitting. And again, it's another easy to DCC fit locomotive from Hornby. 2 screws, tender top comes off. It is a little bit cramped in the tender, but of course there's no real getting around the fact that it's true to the prototype, which was quite diminutive. But what they have got in there is a recess ready-made for a speaker, and I really do hope that a TTS sound chip is coming from Hornby to fit this, because I know that it will just fit in. And that also means that if you have another sound chip, you can make it fit. It's there and ready for it. And that for me always does show that a lot of thought has gone into it. So for ease of use, it is one of the easier locomotives. I'm going to give it a 9.9. Aesthetics. I think they've really captured the look of this Great Eastern Railway Wurzel designed locomotive. There isn't really anything much to put a foot wrong, and I particularly like the tampo printing and finish inside the cab, the flush glazing that really is flush glazing from both inside and outside, and this removable coal load. The finesse of that coal in the moulding is just so lovely. I really do like it. Underneath the boiler, it does seem a little bit empty, and I can't quite shake the feeling that perhaps there ought to be something more in there, but there isn't. I'm not entirely sure. I think I'm going to edge on the side of caution and say I think Hornby probably have got it right, and maybe it's a bit of an odd locomotive that just happens to look that way. But overall, it's a pretty pleasing locomotive, so on aesthetics, I'm going to give it a 9.0 out of 10. Finally, we've got value for money. At the moment, this locomotive is on sale, and I've seen it on sale on and off for the last 18 months or so, which means that it's one which you can pretty much always be certain of grabbing yourself a bargain. Even at full price, it's not actually a massively expensive locomotive, and as a workaday workhorse, I think that this will be finding a great home on a great many layouts. I'm going to give it a score of 9.8 out of 10. It's a really favourable price for a tender locomotive that just works really, really well. Totting up all of those scores, that gives us a really healthy 47.4 for this Hornby J15. It's a really good score, and I do have to explain from time to time that it's not that I'm just massively generous to everything. All of the models that I review kind of go through a pre-screening. That is, if I don't like the look of it, I just don't buy it. And this is a locomotive that I have bought myself with my own money, so I wasn't going to buy a lemon if it didn't look right in the shop. And that's one of the reasons that a lot of these models do score very highly. They really are great models. And why would I mark something down if it doesn't deserve to be marked down? That would just undermine my own integrity. Can I recommend this model? Certainly yes, I can. If you can find one of these at the sale price, bag it and tag it, because they're not going to hang around long. They are a quick seller at the really keen price that we're finding them at. I hope you found that video really useful, and don't forget as well that we've put some affiliate links down below and also a link to our sponsor Trainomatic to find the decoder that we've used in today's DCC fitting guide. You can also subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so, and share this video too. Let other people know about the videos that we're putting out here on this channel. The more the merrier. And tickle the like button. It's really very much appreciated. But until next time, take really good care of yourself. You stay well, and hope to see you here again. Bye for now. Today's video is sponsored by Trainomatic, makers of DCC decoders designed to be fully compatible with every manufacturer's locomotive. Visit train-o-matic.com to browse the full range and see what they've got suitable for you. I'd like to send out a huge thanks to everybody who supports me on Patreon. And an extra special huge thanks goes out to Anthony Kidson, Michael Churchwood, Anthony Hunt, William Wade, Wayne Johns, Offshore Allen, oorail.co.uk, Tepic, Michael Lockie, Helen Sink, Peter Bolton, Brian Smith, and Brian and Dorothy Mudd. Thank you. Without you guys, I couldn't do this.